Hello everyone. This is Tobi from the Phuket Meditation Center, and you're listening to the Dharana Meditation Podcast. Let's sit together, calm the busy mind, and explore topics concerning character development, meditative training, and deeper self-knowledge.
We begin by sitting upright, the head suspended from above. The body relaxed at ease. We'll take a few deep, long, comfortable breaths. Make sure that the way you breathe actually feels good. All that matters is just this one breath. Forget all the other breaths. Just being with one is enough. Let your awareness of the breath be very casual, very relaxed. Let go of this overly ambitious type of focusing on the breath. It's almost as if you were noticing your breath just out of the corner of your eyes. And it's unavoidable that the mind will wander, that you will get lost in its wandering. Calculate that in. And every time when you notice that you're wandering, just remember that there is a breath right now, right here. As you breathe in, you simply know that you're breathing in. As you breathe out, you know that you're breathing out. We're not controlling the breath. We're not controlling the awareness to be with the breath. But we appreciate each moment when they come together. And if the mind is running away, getting distracted, moving about, let it do so. Let it run, let it play. And notice how it comes back to the breath all by itself after a while. Then welcome it again. Noticing when you're distracted, remembering the breath, resting with this one breath. No matter what happens, we just repeat that. And whatever comes up in the meantime, frustration, boredom, pain, joy, peace, pleasure, whatever, simply notice it. There's nothing to do about anything. Nothing to control, nothing to get rid of, nothing to hold on to. And after a while, you naturally come back to the breath. Just like that. And slowly, slowly, your breathing and your mind will come together more and more. The periods where you're keeping the breath in mind will extend and become longer. Periods of distraction will get shorter. Notice also where and how in your body you experience the breath. Some people experience the flow in their nostrils, some the rising, lifting, and sinking of the chest. Some feel the movements in their belly. Some feel the breath all throughout their entire body. If it wasn't for this activity of breathing, we would be dead. It's this thing that keeps us alive, minute after minute. If you feel that you're really struggling, it's difficult, also discomfort in the body, make it a very gentle habit to notice all these things. And there's discomfort. I don't like that discomfort. There's dislike. There's aversion. And there is also the in-breath. And then there is the out-breath. Gradually allow the breath to serve you as an anchor, to help you to rise above the trials and tribulations of your body and your mind, staying centered in the face of difficulty. Rather than fighting with yourself. On your own time, you can slowly come back, open your eyes, gently stretch your body a little bit. As you stretch, remaining centered in the breathing, even remaining aware of the breath after the session has finished. As you're listening to the talk, in between the sentences, or even while you're hearing those sentences, try to just remain gently aware of your breath. Not in a pushy way, not trying to block out anything else. Not forcing your awareness to be with the breath either. Just noticing it, appreciating it. Very gently, it's like a background activity. Good morning, everyone. Good to see all of you. The day's topic is anchoring the awareness, particularly using the breath as an anchor. So, for a normal, untrained person like us, it's the case that the mind can be pulled off its center by any kind of circumstance. It can be pulled off its center by its own activity. It can be pulled off its center by physical activity, by sense perceptions, by other people, their activities and so on, that can pull our mind off its center. Now, what do I mean by center? It's a thing with these words, right? When I say, be centered. The mind is pulled off its center. Very often we think we know exactly what I'm talking about. No. Staying centered, of course. Staying centered. But if we had to really explain it nicely, it becomes a more difficult thing. What actually is the center? So I would say the center is, for the normal everyday person, the center would be that which is observing, knowing, seeing, witnessing, whatever the circumstance might be. And being pulled off the center means that that observer, that central quality of awareness, is pulled out into becoming a doer. It starts to go from attention to intention. It is attracted to an object that appears, then it lands on that object, then it grasps that object and then obsesses about it. It's usually what happens, yes? That's being pulled off the center. The opposite is seeing what is happening while it is happening. And just that, just seeing it. Casually noticing it. There is this. There is, for example, complaining. As you're sitting there in your meditation, your body hurts and then complaining arises. Complaining fills the mind. And before you know it, you're not the one listening to the complaining anymore, you're the one doing the complaining. And as the complainer, you don't even know that you're complaining. You're just in the complaining, focused on the object of your complaints. Say, my knee pain. There's knee pain, and I'd be really happy if that wasn't there. So what I'm doing mentally is I obsess about it. And I don't notice that there is this obsession going on in the mind. I'm not aware of this because I'm obsessing. I'm busy obsessing. Yes. It's like you can't see the car when you're in it, driving it. In order to see the car, you'd have to stop driving, you have to park somewhere, you have to get out of it, and take a few steps back, and you get a good overview. Then you can see the car. So that's the difference between being centered and not centered. Being centered means being here as a witness to circumstances, to experiences, knowing them for what they are. A non-interfering, non-manipulating, non-controlling, just seeing. This quality of being centered is also known as equanimity. It means you're standing in the middle of all this and you're not moved by it. No matter what happens, you're not moved by it. Body can be in intense pain, it can be on fire. You're not moved by it. You're at ease, you're cool. Your mind is fresh and clear. The observer is at peace. It's almost as if someone else's body is burning. You don't feel the pain. Because you're not in it. You're not identified with it. You're not caught up with it. You're not obsessing over it. It's actually a bit incorrect so to say that you are being pulled off your center. It's more the case that you leave your center. This is perhaps more accurate. You are the one that approaches an object. You are the one that grabs the object, identifies with it. It's not that objects force you to become identified with them. More that you forget yourself for the sake of playing a role. The role of the complainer, the role of the enjoyer, the role of the resistor. So being centered allows you to be also much more truthful, much more honest. Rather than saying, well, I think she's a fantastic person, you can then observe, there is thinking happening. Thinking happens. There is such and such thought that arises and passes. There is desire, there is wanting, there is appreciation. All these things happen. That's much more honest than, well, I don't know, he's an idiot or something like that. He's an idiot isn't the truth. The truth is, there is a perception of idiocy arising in the mind right now. Or there is suffering, and the suffering talks. The suffering perceives a burning world filled with idiots. And I'm the victim of it. That's the perception. It's a perception. It's a belief. That's thoughts. That it all comes together, comes up together in the mind. It's more sincere, more honest, more truthful to see that this is going on rather than being caught up in it and believing that the way the world perceives is the way the world actually is. Sorry, the way I perceive the world is the way the world is. Such things happen if you're pulled off, or if you're leaving your center. Then these things happen. Then you're going to be lost in all kinds of things. All kinds of sometimes joyful, sometimes horrible states. And you'll be propelled from state to state just by the force of habit, the law of causality, one leading to another, and so on and so forth. Just following tendency, following programming. And so you're kind of like somebody that floats in a river. You do have some degree of control. You can wiggle a bit in that river. You can complain also. The water is cold. I don't like it. It hurts. So many sharp rocks. You can complain. Sure. That's the freedom you have. You can also swim a bit to the left, swim a bit to the right. You can hold on to a piece of plastic or styrofoam that floats next to you. You can do all that. But in the end, you're still off the river. The river decides where you go. If you go down some waterfalls, if you turn left, if you turn right, you get out of the rapids, the white water, you're pulled under. You're having a nice, beautiful, calm section of the river. Beautiful landscapes around you. It's not you that does that. In a similar way, all the tendencies that arise in the mind is not done by you, actually. It's just tendencies, programs, old things that you have grasped in the past over and over again, so these things keep reappearing. There you sit, and when pain arises, how have you dealt with pain in the past? Well, you did it by complaining about it. Then guess what tendency will pop up in that moment? You're sitting there, the knee is in pain, the hips are in pain, and that will trigger complaining. It's not because you choose to complain out of nothing. Just out of pure emptiness, suddenly you're like, I could complain about this. Why not? Let's complain a bit about it. It's not like a choice, is it? It just happens. Now I'm telling you that because this is one of the keys to help you come back to your center. Since everything is simply just happening, There's nothing you need to do about it. Just watch. Complaining is like this. Not liking something is like this. Pain is like this. There's nothing you need to do about it at all, other than understand it for what it is. The deeper your level of understanding, the greater your level of freedom from it. The more clearly you understand what has previously been your vehicle, the more details you see about it, the more distance you have from it, the more peaceful it is going to become. And then you understand how suffering actually arises. It arises by you approaching the object, grasping it, identifying with it, clinging to it, not wanting to let it go, obsessing over it. So suffering is not something that happens to you, it's something that you do out of habit. You're doing pain. You're doing distress. You're doing contraction. And you're doing it because you don't know that you're doing it. So while you are there floating around in your various thought bubbles and daydreams, you don't know what's happening to you at all. Like you're in that river, but you don't even know that you're in that river. And when the ride is rough, you complain, and when the ride is sweet, you enjoy. It's complete victimhood. It's complete bondage. You're not free at all. So stepping into your center, observing, knowing, is a significant improvement in life quality. It makes you much more free, less caught up with yourself. Yes. Which is the only problem in this world. People are caught up with themselves, let alone other things that appear to you. It all is perceived through the lens of yourself, isn't it? You're hearing the sound, the one who's hearing is you. You're hearing it through your conditioning, through your past, your upbringing. So you're not experiencing anything outside of yourself ever. You're experiencing your own little kind of universe, and you're totally lost in it. And in that universe, we spin around and around, endlessly, going from one adjustment to the next adjustment to the next adjustment, replacing one type of pain with another type of pain, endlessly. So how do we cultivate more centeredness? Very easy. In the beginning, all you need to do is begin to become sensitive to your breath. Notice your breathing. And I do not mean obsess and focus on your breath. Now you need to try to stay centered for the rest of the day, and you need to do your best to always be centered. Forget that. Here is perhaps where prayer comes in. You can ask for more awareness. You can ask so that your mind is blessed to wake up more. Because that waking up, you're not doing it. You think you do? You think you're the one that produces awareness? That produces the witness? Just pulling it out of your pocket. Not really. You're daydreaming along, and all of a sudden you notice that you're daydreaming. That noticing that you're daydreaming, what is causing that? Something must be causing that. And I would say, at a lower level, you can say that what is causing that is your desire for more awareness. When you sit down and you meditate, you're much more aware, right? You cross your legs. You sit maybe in front of an altar. Maybe you have your little mat, your little corner where you're always sitting. That sitting down in that position at that time, what other is that than an expression of desire for more awareness? And just because you sit like this, you become more aware. During that half an hour of your practice or 1 hour of your practice, however long you sit, you will notice that you are far more aware than just during your everyday life. If you don't practice just a normal, regular day, how often do you wake up and become an observer to yourself? Very rarely, right? Every now and then. Most of the time we're totally caught up in our activities, conversations, and so on. So that wish to be more aware, where does that come from? Why would I have a wish to be more aware? That to me boils down to hanging out with the right people. Only that. It's again not produced by yourself. It's produced by the books you read, the videos you watch on YouTube, conversations you have, by the group of meditators that surrounds you. All that inspires your mind, inspires your heart to become more aware. So I can't really claim awareness. It's not the great Tobi that makes himself aware. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. It's Tobi's fantasy, though. He would like to make himself aware. And then he sits down, he tries really hard to make himself aware. How is that possible? How can the car get out of itself and watch itself? Impossible. Something else has to exit the car and then look at it. The car itself cannot see itself. It's like asking you to have a look at your eyes. Look at your eyes right now. Take a good look at them. How can you? You can't. Your eyes cannot see themselves. They can only see objects. This is the nature of our sense of self. The sense of self can only ever see objects through its own kind of perceptions, through its body, through its senses, through its conditioning. It cannot make awareness. Awareness exists prior to that sense of self, prior to this trying, the intentions, the wanting, the desires. It exists prior to that. It's already there before it. It's the space in which all of this happens. So how do you get back to it? You just need to recognize. And that recognition of the self, recognizing the space in which it exists, then leads to the space recognizing and producing recognition more and more. To clarify that, awareness arises not because you are making it arise. It's more that you're kind of recognizing it. That's as best as I can explain it at my current stage. That awareness arises because there's a desire for more of it. And there is a following through of the little person, little Tobi, that seeks out this awareness. And then there is a response of that somehow, yes? I mean, that awareness itself doesn't do anything. It just knows. And yet still it manifests somehow as a recognition on a lower level. As a recognizing, as a waking up. Or even just a mundane, normal level. Nothing fancied. There's no lights. It's not an overwhelming explosion into nothingness and emptiness. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about the simple observing that you can do, and yet you don't do it. In the beginning, there is still a lot of active observing. You're trying to do it. You're trying to keep staying on it, trying to stay as a watcher. I guess we all have to go through this. And then as it refines, it becomes less and less intentional. Less and less like me trying to watch. And more just watching. And then more and more you discover that watching is just kind of there in the background. And it doesn't do anything about anything. And then there's more deeper levels too. But in the beginning, we just start by observing. And ideally, you can train that observing something by observing something. And ideal for that is the breathing. So you can anchor your awareness with your breath, using your breath, simply knowing whether you're breathing in or out, making that a habit throughout your day. Every now and then just remembering, there is the breath, and then have one mindful breath, keeping the breath in mind. Very casual, not focused and tense. You don't have to block out anything. Maybe you're sitting in a bus and you're trying to block out the noise of the people who are talking next to you so you can focus on your breath. You don't have to. You know whether you're breathing in or out, even while people next to you are talking. Even while you're understanding what they're talking about, you still can know whether you're breathing in or out. It's more like a background kind of activity. It's not this crass foreground focus. This is, I think, what puts a lot of people off when they try to cultivate themselves and train their mind, is they cannot meet their own expectation, which is uninterrupted, brilliance, clear focus on the breath that isn't disturbed by anything. How can you produce that? You can't. That might be a result of just relaxing with your breath for a long time. Yeah. Both the awareness and the breathing coming closer and closer together. If you can stay relaxed and centered with your breathing, even in troubled environments, you're just there casually knowing your breath. If you can do that more and more, eventually you can switch over from using the breath as an object of focus to just using the observing itself as a center. Recognizing the observing itself as that center, not the breath anymore. It's a kind of self-knowing versus knowing the breath. But that self-knowing is quite more subtle. It's more difficult. Knowing the breath is more easy in the beginning, having an object that you can kind of tie your awareness to. So you're not constantly getting lost in daydreams. Just wanting that, just intending that at the beginning of a day, that you want to stay more anchored with your breathing, will produce that more and more. You can also refresh that intention at lunchtime, or every 3 hours, or whenever there's an app on your phone that rings a bell every hour or something like that, to refresh the intention, to try for the next hour again, to every now and then notice the breath. And then to rest in it, to stay centered in it. So all the other things that happen get a bit more into the background, a bit more soft, blurred out. Start like this. And just cultivate that. That will be like an entry-level practice that will lead on to deeper forms of equanimity and being balanced, not being carried away by anything. Is it clear so far? Training yourself to stay with your breath very gently. as a beginning kind of idea to more centeredness. All right, guys. Thank you very much for coming. Have a good time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and had a meaningful time. For more information and upcoming events, head over to our website at phuket-meditation.com. Thank you very much for listening and have a wonderful day.